wabarakatuh. Welcome everybody to our first webinar in the webinar series AI and Machine Learning, Quality of Life. This webinar is will be presented by Mr. Ameen Altajer, and we will introduce him in a while. But we want to give you an overview about the things that we have in UOB, University of Bahrain, and benefit. We have Mr. Nizar, I think, in the audience. Welcome, Mr. Nizar Maroof. We signed a memorandum of understanding to create a new lab for AI and advanced computing. Inshallah, it will be ready in the next few months. And we thank them for their generous support for the activities in UOB and in Bahrain. This lab will be also open for researchers from outside UOB as well. Also, in Bahrain, anybody in Bahrain can apply to benefit from the lab services. Are you ready, inshallah, Mr. Ameen?
Born ready.
Excellent, mashallah. Okay, so welcome everybody to the webinar entitled Practical Use Cases of Machine Learning in the Financial Space. It will be presented by Mr. Ameen Altajer, as you mentioned. And I'll give you an introduction about him shortly. So Ameen is the CEO of INFINITEWARE. It's an artificial intelligence company with a more remarkable track record with large clients, Saudi Aramco, STC, Zain, Bahrain government, and so on. Ameen has good experience in many fields, technical fields, and especially cybersecurity, AI, the topic of today, penetration testing, 3D programming, simulations, hardware design, and programming. He is also a Google developer expert in machine learning and recognized veteran speaker. He has spoken to major technical businesses, ranging from Google, Amazon Web Services, and huge conferences in Bahrain, Lebanon, Dubai, and many other places. Please welcome Mr. Ameen, and we are waiting for your tips.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for having me here today. Let me start by sharing my screen first, and then we can start. Just a sec.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much for having me here, Dr. Abdullah. I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you again. It is always a pleasure to come back and share, value with the people, and in this case, my alma mater, University of Bahrain. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So the topic of today is going to be called machine learning, practical use cases for the financial space, given that I have worked in the financial space for probably 10 years or more. I do understand that Dr. Abdullah has given you already a brief background, so I just wanted to share my contact details in here. If you're interested in, talking with me about any topics, be it machine learning, cybersecurity, or whatever, you can always contact me at ameenaltajer.com or in my handle, which is at Ameen Altajer. You can also check out our products and services in the financial space, anything that spans machine learning, at INFINITEWARE.com. So a bit of our customer list. So there you have it. I'm not going to take a lot of your time, but as Dr. Abdullah said, Saudi Aramco, STC, Zain, and the Ministry of Interior, and a couple of more as well. So we do have an AI product that we believe in that goes by the name of Kaveria, which wholeheartedly really realizes the potential of machine learning. And you're going to see now during this talk how this can really help you out throughout your process and your journey. So I figured I'd just probably just put your attention to that product, as we're gonna skim through a lot of things that are going to be relevant to this product. Now, in INFINITEWARE, we believe in 3 principles. The first one is we want to get rid of mundane and repetitive work. As somebody who worked in the financial space for a very long time, 10 years, I really found out that the financial space really takes pride in doing a lot of the mundane work that they do on a daily basis. Now, this is something that I don't really personally do. And so one of the milestones that we set out when we started the INFINITEWARE journey was to get rid of the mundane and repetitive work. And the second thing, we wanted to promise more intellectual bandwidth. Now, when you take all of these routinic stuff and you take all these stuff and you just allow human beings to really practice what they do best, which is creativity and such, you're going to have a much more, let's say, a better output and a lot of things in the landscape. And the last thing that we have in here is that we want to utilize real intelligence. And when I say real intelligence, I don't mean your traditional hyper-marketed AI stuff. We're talking about real machine learning that can really add a lot of value. So yeah, that's pretty much about the background. Now let's just dive in deep here. So the topic today is going to be split into 3 main pillars. The first one is the tech out there, the tech out there. And the second thing is we're going to be talking about the practical use cases in the financial world. And then we're going to conclude by having a roadmap, for the road ahead, be it if you're already sold on the idea of using machine learning in the financial space. And then we can also, add a small segment for QA if that also helps out. Now, I want to say that this talk is going to probably take around 45 minutes, give or take, and probably with QA, we're going to reach 1 hour. So I hope that's going to be okay. Okay, cool. So the first thing here that I want to talk about is the tech. Let's get to know some of the tech out there and how it's going to be very valuable for us. A quick recap of what happened, especially in the AI/machine learning space, in case you didn't have the chance to. Yeah, so let's go through artificial intelligence first. Now, when we really want to summarize it, artificial intelligence is all about artificially depicting cognitive skills. And when I say cognitive skills, I mean really difficult cognitive skills that we humans just use on a daily basis without giving much of regard on how that's really implemented in our bodies or in our minds. Things like problem solving, things like learning, they get thrown all the time, when you go online and people talk about those 2 core skills in humans, and you get to have this sort of feeling that these 2 core skills are extremely easy to implement. Like if you wanted to replicate those settings into a robot, for example, or a machine, like if you ask a programmer to implement one of those things, you will understand the magnitude of the difficulty of adding those things. So I just want you to understand that our AI in general, the whole premise is to get some of those cognitive skills that we enjoy as human beings and give those to the robots or machines in this case. Now, the 2 main skills that I really appreciate, as a human being is the ability to learn, which makes you a dynamic creature, meaning you can adapt with the world, you can really adapt with difficult things. And 2, problem solving, which means if you have an issue next to you, you'll be able to figure out the best way to tackle that, let's say, challenge in your life. Now, it's really fair to say that AI is not new. Now, no matter what you heard online, no matter what you heard in social media, AI is not new. AI has been out there probably since the 50s. It was actually created throughout a conference that goes by the name of Dartmouth. And a lot of people worked on the idea of AI. And actually, the term AI got coined around too, in the 1950s. And so what I want to say here is that, and this is really important, that it's not new. However, the whole media, the whole social media wave and all of these things are really depicting the thing as if was brand new, and things are just coming out of a black hole for us. But in reality, it's not new. It is just being rebranded. And what's so funny about this whole AI thing is AI has been going through some really dark times before it got to this stage where it is really about taking the whole world by surprise. And the second thing here that I want to talk about is that there were 2 exact things that really shaped up the AI journey that allowed AI to get all of the hype that now it enjoys. The first thing is we have an abundance of computational power, aka the cloud. Now, back in my days in when I used to work in Saudi Aramco, I remember we had to book the cluster when we wanted to run any mathematical calculation that had to do with oil estimation and such. And so back in our days, we had to physically book the cluster as if you're booking a meeting room. Now this is basically considered the good old days, given that we have something brand new and that we call the cloud. Now with the cloud, with a click of a button, you can just get compute in any way that you can afford it, which is amazing. Now this first aspect is really big because if you look into it, machine learning and AI in general is just trying to somehow reproduce intelligence, but in a mathematical way. So it does it, but using really computation power in order to achieve that goal. So computation has always been a completely difficult issue. However, with the abundance of computing now, with compute in the cloud, things are becoming much easier. It is much accessible now to everyone to just think about the problem, get computation on demand, and get things done. The second thing is we're talking about a huge repository of historical data. Now, if you look into machine learning specifically, and we're going to get to that in a second, you will understand that the main pillar in making things work is the aspect of data. Without data, nothing can be accomplished. And so we humans are so good when it comes to accumulating data and storing stuff for references. And so what happened is, across the years, when we got to that stage where we needed tons of data to explore machine learning solutions, we figured out that, yeah, we have a lot of data sets that we can probably put to work and experiment with machine learning. And so those two things really shaped out the whole thing. Now, there are other aspects that I don't want to mention in here, but they're not as important as those two things here. Now, let's start by understanding what machine learning is for the people out there that have no clue. You see, back in the day, when you wanted to accomplish something, the idea was you would have somebody with specific requirements, and this is basically what they teach in the university, and then you would have somebody that acts as a translator. So they would take those business requirements, either in a verbal sense or in a written format, and that they're going to translate it. So the key thing here is that these guys that we have, programmers, are essentially going to translate your requirements, and they're going to have them in a tangible format, in a program, in a tangible format. And so that specific paradigm was not really that bad. It did the job, and it did it really, really well. However, there were key points in there that really made it very difficult for other people to use it as the holy grail system in order to get things done. Now, the first thing here is that your business guy, whoever wants those requirements to be done, to be accomplished, might not be the best when it comes to explaining how those things should really work out. And the second issue is your programmer might not be really that good when it comes to translating your requirements into that tangible format. So we had a lot of issues with that specific paradigm. And not only that, we had the ultimate issue of not being able to accomplish certain difficult deals like identifying specific, let's say, animals, detecting objects and such. So when you ask a programmer to go ahead and write code for a problem with that complexity, they're probably going to laugh, because it is very difficult to start and have a concrete implementation to go ahead and have a solution for that, for a problem of that magnitude of difficulty. Now, what machine learning is promising is the other way around. So it shifts the gears a bit. So what it promises is that you just have to go and gather input, in this case, the things that you're trying to accomplish, and you gather the output, the goal that you're trying to accomplish. So a good example is, imagine if I had multiple cats and dogs, like images of cats and dogs, which is a classical problem in machine learning. Now, if you wanted to accomplish the idea of classifying cats and dogs, instead of asking your programmer to go ahead and do all of these things, they can just acquire a lot of images, basically a huge data set. The more, the better. And then you can push it into this semi-generic algorithm that we call artificial neural network, or ANNs for short. And so that artificial neural network, that black box that we're going to explore in a bit, takes your input line by line or row by row or image by image, and the idea is it goes over your input bit by bit, and then it tries to understand through your supervision. So as you give those images, you're supervising the machine, and you're telling the box that, hey, this is a cat, this is a dog, and this is a cat, but this is a cat, this is a dog. And you go on and on and on and on. And that time, like going forward, that machine learning black box is going to be able to tell the difference between cats and dogs on its own, given the huge number of examples that it is seen. And I really love this sort of idea, because this is extremely analogous just to the way we do things as humans. And so we learn more and we do better by having multiple experiences and more examples that we go through. So this is machine learning in a nutshell, extremely simplified and absurdly simplified. Now, the idea of showing examples to this machine learning algorithm that we call artificial neural network is what we call training. So if you ever come across the term training when you're talking to machine learning experts or AI, what they basically mean is that exposing a lot of data set examples to the black box that we call neural networks. So as I said, a good example is just cats and dogs, atypical and a classical problem that we have. And what is so beautiful, just reiterating all the subjects that we talked about in the very beginning, is that we humans are so good when it comes to accumulating data. So for that example, if you ever wanted to do it on your own, the first thing that you're going to do is to acquire the data set. And believe it or not, that data set is available for free on kaggle.com, which is a service owned by Google, which is really, really amazing. You don't pay a dime when you want to get access to those data sets. Now, just to summarize, in order for you to understand the specifics of artificial intelligence here and the subdisciplines. Now, first things first, artificial intelligence, a huge field. There's a lot to it. It's not only machine learning. So machine learning is actually a discipline within artificial intelligence, but that also means that AI in general has a lot of stuff that you did not probably explore. So we have things like evolutionary programming or evolutionary systems. We also have different things in computer games and other stuff, but machine learning got a lot of hype lately given the number of practical use cases that you can do. And deep learning specifically is the idea of relying on huge data sets in order to do your work, because machine learning, which is the superset for deep learning, also relied on a lot of methods, mainly statistical methods, in order to get to that goal. But with deep learning, the bar became so low that you, even if you don't have any experience in machine learning, it's just a matter of just drag and drop for those images, for example, and you can get things done, which is pretty amazing, and how accessible that is now in this world. Okay, so that was for the recap. We can also reiterate on those if you guys have any questions later on, but I wanted to be extremely brief when we're talking about this so we can focus on the use cases. All right, so on to the use cases and the impact here, a new digital world for the financial world. Okay, so the first thing that I really adore from what I've seen in the financial space is that you always be in a better place when you have a better visibility and you can really predict extremely close to what the real variables are. So in this case, one of the easiest things that you can accomplish is a financial institution, even if you're not a financial institution, but somebody who works in this space, is the idea of sentiment analysis. Now, the whole idea behind sentiment analysis is that you want to get feedback from people as fast as possible and as accurate as possible without as accurate as possible without having to go through the difficulty of asking people to go and get you data in a physical form. So a good example for you to understand and appreciate this, a lot of banks put a small box on the way out that says, please put your feedback there, if you're kind enough. Now that from experience doesn't work because you're relying on people to do things that are out of the country. Now in this really fast-paced world, who's going to really stop at that box and put their stuff in that specific box, their comments, and then for you to go and review them. So a better way is to really rely on the organic streams that we're using. A good example is Twitter. Now, with Twitter is a two-way sword. You can really get a lot of things done in a good way, and you can also abuse the medium. So with sentiment analysis, it's so easy, for example, to, I wouldn't say scrape, but you can subscribe to a specific hashtag, and then Twitter is going to be super kind enough to get you a lot of those tweets your way, coming in your way, that follow a specific hashtag. And then by using machine learning, extremely easy to set up a machine learning model or a system that can understand the sentiment of the tweet. So imagine you have a new product coming in outside or a new service and you want to know how people feel about it. It is just as easy of setting up a specific tag and allow people to go ahead and subscribe to that, and have your system subscribe to that tag, and then in real time. And the key thing here is that you can know in real time if you're getting negative feedback about your products or service, or positive feedback, or just neutral. Extremely amazing, and I've seen it in action. Extremely easy to set up. However, I don't know why a lot of people still don't do it. We also have the idea of customer service. Now, businesses eventually are going to have to come back and see how people think about their services. They would need to support their services. So customer service is an essential service in many of the businesses that we have out there. So how about a live performance monitoring solution that allow people to understand what they're doing in real time? From my experience, like in INFINITEWARE personally, we've extremely utilized the cloud in order to do that. So with Microsoft Azure, for example, it's so easy to get a hold of certain APIs. And in case you don't know what APIs are, it's basically a technical gateway to other people's systems. So if I wanted to integrate with some of the functionality that Microsoft has already done for me, instead of me redoing a lot of stuff from scratch, I can just basically get an API, which is basically like a door into their systems. I can give them multiple inputs. In this case, I'm submitting my image, and they can just give you a lot of the information that is relevant to what you're doing. So in this case, I wanted to know a lot of attributes about my photo here, and believe it or not, I'm a male, and my age is pretty close to the reality here. I don't have makeup, thank God, and you can really see how how my feelings are in that specific moment. So you get a lot of information. You can put that to practice, and we've done that personally in INFINITEWARE for our customers in Saudi in real time using their CCTV cameras. Beautiful work. And I also want to talk about new stuff that you can rely on the cloud. Apologies. So for the people who are extremely familiar with the idea of AWS, Amazon Web Services, there's a beautiful service that goes by the name of Amazon Connect. Now, what Amazon Connect does is that it outsources the idea of contact centers or call centers, and allows you to use machine learning to the fullest to understand what people are doing. So with Amazon Connect, for example, you can see in real time how people feel about your conversation. So it's so easy to see that when people are getting super frustrated using machine learning, of course, we can tell that when they get frustrated in real time, the call can directly be transferred to the manager, to not have really bad feedback going forward. So those cool things now can happen in real time, and they can happen with the power of machine learning. And not only that, it's not like that you have to really reinvent the wheel for this. Those services are being delivered to you as managed services using the cloud. In this case, a big player, which is Amazon Web Services. Really beautiful work, if you had to ask me. Now, another thing that I really appreciate about some customers, really mature customers, is that sometimes you get to have the chance to really segment your customer base into multiple segments, multiple pools, using the idea of machine learning. So there's a field in machine learning that goes by the name of unsupervised learning. And the idea is, unlike what we talked about earlier on, where you have to supervise the machine and tell it that, hey, I'm passing cat or dog here, you can just put the data as it is in its raw format with unsupervised learning. And somehow unsupervised learning is going to get you a lot of really beneficial stuff that can be realized under AI. But the idea here, what I'm trying to say here, is that you get different functionalities under supervised learning from that specific segment that we talked about, which is supervised learning. So a good example for unsupervised learning, and you don't need to know about that, is that you can get customer segmentation out of the box. You can split your customer pool into multiple segments depending on how they spend, on their behaviors. You can basically group them in multiple spaces, multiple circles, and that can really help you a lot down the line. Beautiful work. Now, apart from customer segmentation, there's a new tendency for other people to experiment with different things now in this new world. A good example is the idea of APIs, or establishing your financial institution as a new financial partner. Yeah, especially that we have other, I would say, horrible stuff to financial spaces, financial institutions, things like open banking, something that I really adore. It is extremely funny how financial institutions are trying to combat the idea of open banking on a daily basis. However, for end users, people like us, people like beneficiaries like us, we should be extremely happy about something like that being pushed by the regulatory body here, because this really offers us new opportunities for the business, new opportunities even as end users. And I'm going to explore them in a bit. And so, yeah, moving on the idea of having a new part of being a new financial partner, new business models. One of the best things that I really see in some other mature banks from my experience outside of Bahrain is that you get to shape the experience for the customer depending on their behavior, depending on their experiences, past experiences, on their habits, and all of that. And if you get to compare that to what we have currently in Bahrain, which is so sad, is that a lot of the banks here, they just rely on mass messaging in order to get their offers abroad, get their offers onto you as the customer, which is really embarrassing sometimes. I remember when I was a student back in university, I got an SMS from my bank, and this bank shall not be named. But the idea is I remember having an SMS that says, maybe now it is the perfect time to explore a mortgage loan. Oh, seriously. And I'm probably 18 back at that time. And so if you don't have a tailored specific experience for each customer, it's going to get embarrassing for you, because your customers are going to know that you're taking the shortest path in order to get things done. Not really that beautiful if you ask me. And so with machine learning, it's extremely easy now with the abundance of data, especially if we're talking about banks, given that they have a huge repository of data that dates back probably to the 50s. You get to have a tailored experience for those customers, and you get to know if that customer is a big fan of coffee, big fan, let's say, of computer games or PlayStation or something like that. And you can then tailor a specific offer for them to what they want. And that really enriches the experience for the customer. The customer will begin to understand that you are more of a partner rather than just a big folder for cash, like if you get that analogy. And so tailoring the experience is really key in making sure that things really work out down the line for you and your customer as a partner. And one more thing that I've seen in terms of B2B businesses is that a lot of businesses now are trying to accumulate their data, aggregate their data, but at the same time, instead of giving access to that data through APIs, you want to somehow masquerade it or just offer value without really invading the privacy of the user. So what people do, in my experience in telcos and in banks, is that they offer multiple APIs sitting on top of their data. However, what the API is presenting to other businesses is just value, but without really, as I said, invading the privacy of the user. So the ultimate beneficiary of that API, be it another restaurant or another financial institution, is, for example, the idea to have aggregate data or specific machine learning models that can really benefit them down the line for prediction or other stuff. But at the same time, you're not getting the granular details here that can really compromise your data protection laws and such, which is really beautiful. So the idea is you also want to be an intelligence provider using APIs, and you can also work in a B2B manner instead of just, delivering all of your stuff in a B2C manner. If that is something you want to chase as well. Perfect. Now, efficiency is something that I also really appreciate when people do, especially that I'm somebody that doesn't really appreciate wasting time. Now, you've probably heard about the GPT-3 by now, but in case you haven't, let me just break it down for you. So GPT-3 is a machine learning model, which is basically a sugar-coated way to saying that you have an AI program in a way that utilizes all of the experience that we have hosted on Wikipedia and a lot of books. And OpenAI, which is I believe it's a profitable entity by now, which used to be a nonprofit, but now it's a profitable business, created this machine learning model that allows people to just interact with that model. And given that this AI system has seen so much from our literature, our history, it'll be able to go and answer you for many of the questions that you can present it with. And not only that, it can also complete your sentences. It can also write on your behalf if you want. So this is basically what we call NLG, or natural language generation, which is a beautiful field that is maturing quite fast, honestly. Now, the reason I'm bringing GPT-3 here, because when you have GPT-3 and when you have context awareness, something like Siri or Alexa, one of those things, you can really build beautiful intelligent systems that can really have a lot of impact on your customers. So in Bahrain, for example, and in INFINITEWARE specifically, we have our product Kavriya that we use a lot with our customers in Bahrain and out of Bahrain, especially with banks. And this is what we call artificial banking intelligence. And the idea is we have an artificial intelligent chatbot that can run on-premise without having access to the internet, so we can respect those rules and compliance stuff that we have within banks and the financial sector. And then people can just easily, interact with the chatbot, no matter what your infrastructure is running on. So if you're on top of Teams, if you're running on top of Skype for Business, Slack, whatever it is that you're using, especially within on-premise, you'll be able to rely on Kavriya, which is our own chatbot, to get things done. And the beautiful thing is, Kavriya is very smart. It can really detect if you have a broken English, if you mean something, and it's really dynamic. So if you talk about things more and more and more and more, it's probably going to ask you, what do you mean by that? So it can relate to that and can get you the results as soon as possible. In my honest opinion, as somebody who worked in this field for quite some time, I think this is a wonderful product, like a wonderful invention that we really commercialized, and really tamed for the business, especially for a difficult landscape like banking in this case. So I really urge you to go there and really explore it. Now, another thing that you can also do to not waste your customers' time is to rely on image recognition. Now, OCR, or image recognition, has really advanced big time. We're not talking about the old days. Now, with machine learning, a lot of stuff have changed, and OCR has gotten so advanced that it can really predict text, even if it's inclined or it's not clear. And I do believe and understand that Samkeen in this case in Bahrain really heavily rely on OCR to pick up a lot of the details coming in through their applications online, which is a beautiful thing how they managed to do it in a very short time. So, and also one of the experiences that I've been through also is the idea of JP Morgan relying on a machine learning model or an artificial intelligent, program in this case to skim over their legal documents, looking for fishy clauses and stuff that they have to go through. So this is really amazing and a wonderful use case for that sort of a thing, especially in a difficult field that really rely heavily on the way language is presented, language is transmitted through, especially with the play of words in the legal space. Let me just add more value to those things by really relying more and more on the cloud, so you can really tell. So the idea behind the cloud is you want to offload most of your work away from those dumb devices that we call your phones, and because they don't have a lot of really high specs, you want to offload that specific fatigue, technical fatigue, and you want to give it to the cloud. And when we're talking about the cloud is nothing more than just a data center, or let's say infrastructure that lives away from you, be it be it in the country itself, just like with Amazon Web Services here in Bahrain, where we have 3 availability zones under our region in Bahrain, ME South 1, or it's basically just having infrastructure somewhere else, and that really helps you out down the line. So if you had issues with doing compute, meaning calculations, or you want to have storage, or you want to have network, you can just upload it to a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. And now with cloud, it really matured a lot that you have multiple stages. So if you want to have that granular control, you can go for IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, or you can go all the way up, which is just software as a service, where you just don't bother with anything else apart from you're just dealing with the app itself. Nothing that, you don't deal with the backups, you don't deal with the physical space, you don't deal with security, nothing at all, which is a beautiful sort of compromise depending on how mature you are. Now, I wanted to bring those cloud providers because it's like choosing a flat, basically. If you wanted to move forward, especially in the AI space, those the mileage here is going to differ depending on the cloud provider that you're talking about here. Microsoft Azure really excels in specific AI stuff for machine learning. GCP is also very beautiful, They've got AutoML, which basically allows you to just drag multiple images and then you can just say classify with no code whatsoever. Amazon Web Services, probably the richest in terms of functionality, has a lot of stuff. There's a lot to it, and you can do and you can really get competitive prices. So just choose exactly the cloud provider that you want to go for. And remember, moving across clouds is like changing flats or apartments. So it might not be very pleasing or convenient, but sometimes you have to do it when you have to do it. Now, a good example in the financial space specifically is how Bank ABC has relied on or has completely invested in the cloud. So from the get-go, Bank ABC, or in this case, Bank, has started working with Amazon Web Services in order to provide really valuable stuff. So I'm not going to talk about things like load balancing and EC2 and those technical terms in AWS if you're not a technical person, but I just want you to understand that having a cloud native strategy from the get-go can really help you down the line in the long run, specifically when we're talking about machine learning stuff, machine learning and AI. And that's really beautiful when you have to support multiple people. So having the ability to deploy your machine learning models or your AI programs in a way across the world really helps you out even with the latency. So one of the difficult things if we're talking about machine learning is that the idea of inferencing. So you might not heard about this, but when you develop an AI system, the majority of your computation doesn't really go for training the system or showcasing to the system the examples that we can learn from. The majority of the computation is being spent when you inference, which basically means asking the system to get you a result. So imagine I show an image to the machine learning model and I tell it, is this a cat or a dog? So this process is what we call inferencing. And so that process takes a lot of compute and it really drains the power. And so having multiple places across the world using the cloud could really also align, with your AI strategy by really lowering the latency, which is really beautiful. And with AWS, it's just a click of a button to copy your infrastructure somewhere else. Really, really easy. And I think with like the University of Bahrain, you guys have invested a lot in AWS and really teaching people how to use it. So this is something that you should get credit for. Okay, so before I leave the cloud area, I just want to make sure, like if you are on AWS, please check out Amazon Sagemaker, which is a beautiful tool that covers your machine learning aspects from A to Z. So if you have people dealing with the data, they will be able to do it in here. They will be able to label the data in here, which is a tremendous and a difficult deal. You can also, one of the beautiful things that Amazon does here is that you can crowdsource it. So imagine I have a huge data set and I want people to clean it and I want people to go and label it. So imagine you have 1,000 photos for cats and dogs, but you don't have the name cats and dogs on the photos. It's a lot of work for you. What you can do, you can crowdsource it on Amazon SageMaker through, I think there's another site service that we use with SageMaker, but it allows you to crowdsource it and give money to people while doing that and helping in your project. A wonderful tool. So with SageMaker, you cover the whole AI landscape or machine learning in that space from A to Z, from cleaning the model, shaping the model, training the model, and also deploying the model into multiple APIs. So it's a one-stop shop, basically. You don't have to go and think about training in a different silo and then dealing with multiple teams to go and deploy it into APIs across the world. The whole thing is just streamlined in a single space, which is just wonderful. Now, with the idea of open banking, we can also now, not talking about compute, I think the cloud has done a great job, handling that space. But if we're talking about the idea of accessibility to data, with open banking now, it is no longer an excuse that, hey, I don't have data or I don't have access to financial data. If you're not a bank, you can easily just enroll yourself into the regulatory sandbox in Bahrain or even in Saudi now, that since they opened for open banking, and you can start getting people's data, of course, with their consent, which is an amazing deal. So if I wanted to build a specific utility that can really predict things from somebody's behavior, spending behavior, or their loans or credit cards, it's just a matter of writing an application that allows them to get data from their bank with their consent, with a click of a button, and you're good to go. So that really supplements and aligns with the whole machine learning journey, because it's no longer the case that you have to suffer, getting data across the board into your solution. So yeah, you're no longer holding tight to your data, which is sometimes, in a way, really bad news for financial institutions, given that they don't have now the power over you to control your data. And I'm a big fan of this because I do understand that there's a lot of really horrible banks in Bahrain, and we have to be extremely, sincere about that, because nothing changes unless you really bring it to the table. So with open banking, these banks are going to have to step up their game, because if they don't do anything in that specific landscape, it is very easy for a third party to come in and bring really valuable products and services that can really take advantage of those customers' data, leaving you just in the dust if you don't do anything special for them. And this is why now banks are operating into that specific model where they're more of a partner to yourself rather than just a bank. And you've seen that with people like Benefit, people like BISB here in Bahrain, and other big players, where they do a lot of hackathons trying to explore how they can really leverage open banking to their benefit. All right, beautiful. Now that we've explored multiple use cases, let us talk about the road ahead if you plan to join the wave of using machine learning or any of those modalities going forward. First things first, adoption. So the idea with adoption is, when you want to have a product or something that you want to rely on, just remember that starting is easy. Everything is available now at almost no cost. Now, if we're talking in the past, it was that case where you had to spend a lot of money in order to get really good tools, beautiful products that can get you where you want to go. But now almost everything is really just accessible now. It's just the idea that compute is going to really cost you, storage is going to cost you, be it doing it on premise in your own data center if you want, or outsourcing it to the cloud. Now, I'm a big fan of the cloud because you can really get that thing out of your plate. You can just give it to Amazon, for example, let them do what they do best, manage their infrastructure and such, and just you focus on the business aspect. And also with something like the cloud, you get on demand. So you don't have to pay that sort of capital investment at the very beginning, where you have to have the setup done for your data center. You can just, apply that computation for the problem that you have at your hand. When you're done, you can just close it and terminate all of the instances that you have online, and you're back to zero. You don't pay anything, which is a beautiful business model, in my opinion. So if you want us to start and you want to have a really quick proof of concept, the first thing that I'm going to focus on is the idea of robotic process automation, which is a sugar-coated way of saying now we have systems that you can just use to drag and drop and build automatic scripts and automated tools. So let's take an example from the financial sector. The majority of the financial sector just relies on sending emails, replying to stuff, opening tickets, trying to do routine stuff. And so with RPAs, it is so easy. And I'm saying this with a grain of salt, of course. You can just take somebody else's seat and put a program on their behalf to do its job. And that is extremely plausible, given that in the corporate world, at least in my opinion, you can challenge me in that, there's little to no room when it comes to creativity, at least from what I've seen so far. So take it with a grain of salt. But the idea is, most of the jobs there, and I don't want to be I don't want to generalize, but the majority from what I've seen really rely on just following instructions, which is a really good fit for RPAs. So this is something that you can start with if you want to, probably get your hands dirty with AI and machine learning without, investing too much. Now with open banking, I want to just tell you that in Bahrain specifically, we have Token.io that is supporting the infrastructure of Robotic Gateway. So in case you were wondering, you can easily get access to their systems and build systems and applications realizing the whole open banking initiative using their SDK, and actually everything is available online. So it's just a matter of enrolling in the sandbox by the central bank and getting your license in order to put and push basically your product online. So this is for open banking. Now, one thing that I want to focus on as well is that given that we have extraordinary tools out there, so many abundance, like the abundance that we have for tools and technologies, the difficult question, the million-dollar question is not using AI in a specific problem, but as asking the right question. which is in this case, how can I solve that specific issue? Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because asking the right question can really spare you a lot of headache in terms of investment, workload going forward. In my experience in INFINITEWARE, we've seen a lot of issues, a lot of technical challenges that can really be solved with no machine learning. And so it's really funny when I see people asking to go in, asking us to go and build machine learning models, and us being, very considerate, telling them that these things can be easily done by other systems without making that sort of capital investment for machine learning. So machine learning is not a silver bullet. It's not free. You will have to invest in data. You will have to invest in a pipeline, what we call ML ops, basically machine learning ops or operations. And so there's an investment that you will have to do if you want to go that route. And so you only want to go that route when you really make sure that this is worth the investment that you're going to put in. Yeah. So asking the right question is the way to go before you explore any technology. And that is no different for machine learning or AI. And then choose wisely. Not, as I said, not everything is a silver bullet, just reiterating on the other aspects here. Remember, everything is available in terms of tools, either free or really cheap. So if we're talking about open source has always been a great vendor for banks and financial institutions. So the open source community provided us with things like Linux, WordPress, MongoDB, PHP, Git, MySQL, Python, and you can just go on and on and on and on without really making that stop, because open source has always been providing value to other people. And it's no different when we're talking about machine learning. So you have a variety of open source frameworks for machine learning, notably TensorFlow, which is I'm an expert on, being a GDE or a Google developer expert. That's only 150 out of us in the world. So, I really enjoy working with TensorFlow, given, that this is the #1 tool or the main tool that Google uses when they're doing their own machine learning products and services. But you also have NumPy, PyTorch, Caffe, Keras, and OpenCV. All of those that you see here on screen are just open source tools, beautiful tools, and they're easy to use, and they have a huge amount of documentation that can really aid you down the road. And as I said, you don't pay a dime when you use those tools. It's just a matter of how much time and effort and experience you put into those things in order to realize what's happening in here. And yeah, just rely on the cloud provider that you feel is going to take you to the journey, through your journey and to your goals. It could either be Amazon Web Services, it could either be Google Cloud Platform, it could either be Microsoft Azure. Just do your homework and make sure their AI goals really align with yours as well. And in summary, I want you to understand those things before I just close. Invest in really good data in people who can really handle it well. So you probably know this by now, people in the computer industry. Garbage in, garbage out. Don't expect really good results from your machine learning models if you can't really supply decent data and clean data. Yeah. And not only that, you want to have people who can really work with the data. Data scientists, people who understand how to traverse the data, how to read it, how to see what's happening, how to acknowledge the, let's say, the trends in the data, what happens in the data. You need people who can actually work with that. So this is probably the key or the most important investment I would really urge you to go for. The second thing is know what you want to do and leverage what the data has to offer. And so always start by asking yourself, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve here? It's not the other way around. It's not like, hey, I have AI, I have this AI hammer, where can I use it? It's not like that. You want to go ahead and figure out the issues that you have and then probably see where AI can really fit. Because sometimes, as I said, somebody who works in the industry and been working in the AI space for some time, it's not always that AI is going to be a great deal for you. Sometimes AI is just a horrible investment, or machine learning specifically, for your problem. Really capitalize on your data. You want to make sure you have data again, because data is the key for modern machine learning. And without it, deep learning is not going to really take you further down the road. Third, just utilize the existing tools and the infrastructure available. Never reinvent the wheel, especially in a high-spaced rivalry like in this market. You want to use things, you want to use credible stuff like TensorFlow, cloud, when you want to just you get your things together. You don't want to just reinvent the wheel because it is fun or it's just cool. And I see this a lot with people from the academic space, because it might not be really that tough, when you compare to the industry. When the industry, time really matters, and speed to market is a pretty big deal. And so when you want to go that route, make sure you utilize existing tools and the infrastructure available before you really invest heavily in your infrastructure. And the last thing that I want to leave you with here is that start with a small proof of concept. You might not want to go for a, let's say, fully fledged machine learning model running on a cluster of Kubernetes or whatever it is. You probably want to start with an RPA solution just to make sure that you get your idea across the board. If you get good results, if you get the buy-in from those stakeholders that make you accountable to that solution, then probably later you want to get that sort of investment on board. And I really urge you guys to explore relying on automation, given that automation is the biggest deal of our human suffering, which is wasting our time in doing repetitive stuff at work, especially in the corporate space. So yeah, good data and people, know what you want to do, use existing tools, and just have a proof of concept to get your idea on board and get the buy-in. And for the rest, before we close, remember that deep learning is completely data hungry, which means without data, you're not going to get very far with machine learning. And also something which is really, really important here, just remember that ethical issues can really come on board when we're talking about data. Now, you have people like telcos, banks going crazy about people's data online, trying to scrape those from Twitter, from Facebook, sometimes even without their consent. So you want to just make sure that you're not stepping over somebody else's toes. Otherwise, you can really be in a legal jeopardy going forward, especially with things like GDPR or Bahrain data protection law, which is governing us now. So yeah, we have issues like scalability, talent, integration, security bias, privacy. So machine learning has its own issues. Yeah, and just leaving you with that note, in the race of business, data can either make or break your business. Now you probably know why people have a lot of wallets in Bahrain, because data is really key. Now, if you really enjoyed this talk, I would really urge you to go on on YouTube, and you can search for Ameen, and you can check out my talks on how open banking works and how you can really rely on open banking for machine learning. There's a lot of stuff that I had on Google, things like game development, reverse engineering for the technical folks. I hope you really enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, I'm going to open up now. But nonetheless, you can always contact me on ameenaltajer.com or at Ameen Altajer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ameen.
My pleasure.
We appreciate this very intellectual talk, and it was really to the point, and mashallah, you covered a lot of issues that maybe comes in many people's minds. Before we start taking questions, I want to also mention that we also are planning to have a new program in AI and machine learning in the master level. So what do you think about this issue?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Machine learning has always been in the academic space, but now it got this huge boost from the industry, given that now you can for the first time see real practical use cases in the world. But that does not mean that you shouldn't have really a great understanding for machine learning in how data works and such. So if you're interested in knowing how things work from the inside, a master's in machine learning or AI could be really useful to you. If you're just interested in using, the tech from just like a high level, it might not be for you, but I would really urge everyone that really are keen about machine learning and AI to go for an advanced course or, higher studies for AI and machine learning.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yes, we also try our best to connect with the industry in the senior level, senior project level for the bachelor's degree, for also the masters, to have projects and things that are in the real world related to the industry, related to these things. We always encourage our students to look for these things, and we always look for partnerships with our partners to have to give us some projects in order to work on.
Sure.
So we always encourage that.
That's really amazing.
Thank you very much. So
Right.
let's open the floor for some questions. If you have a question, raise your hand so I can unmute you, please. If you are already. We have, mashallah, very good audience. Yes, Dr. Muayyad, go ahead and you can ask your question. Just unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, and first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Ameen for this brilliant and, in fact, fruitful presentation and talk with, in fact, plenty of information. I try my best, in fact, to catch what he's explaining and try to type something. Thanks for University of Bahrain, and in particular the IEEE section, and Dr. Abdullah Qaddoumi as well.
Thank you.
In fact, he presents many things. So I don't know. In fact, I'm too confused what I have to ask or what I have to leave. Because he mentioned about many different tools regarding the machine learning, where he, in fact, machine learning, he stopped in middle between the AI and between the deep learning. So, for example, he mentioned about the, if I call it the Sagemaker, and about the Google, the Microsoft Azure. If he just can brief us, which, according to his own experience, which one of that tools he think is good. We had an experience with Google, for example, for Colab, to use it for the data processing. But in fact, after some number of the data set, it will stop. And I think he mentioned that maybe it's free, but it will cost you later on the storage or the space and the calculation. Yes. So according to his own experience, if he just can brief to us like which one he advised the students and also even the researchers to go without paying that much money.
Sure.
Thank you very
much.
Okay,
my pleasure. Thank you very much for the kind words. Now, first things first, if you're interested in just experimenting with no headache when it comes to setting up your environment locally on your machine, I would always go for Colab. Colab is a great deal. You can just open the browser, you have a server hooked up to your machine, to your browser, and you can just experiment with Python directly. So Colab is a great deal if you're experimenting. However, if you're talking about really large data sets, a lot of compute, for example, if you want to train using GPUs, if you want to train using TPUs by Google, specific hardware to accelerate the training process, you will have to pay, as far as I know, which sometimes might not be a good choice for you. However, Colab is a great starting deal. Google Cloud Platform also has AutoML. So if you're not a programmer, you don't want to get your hands dirty with the code, you can also use AutoML, which is a matter of just drag and drop for the people out there. Now, Sagemaker is a solution, which is an A to Z solution. It will cover the code, the deployment into APIs. It will do a lot of stuff. From my experience, I think businesses either use GCP or they use Sagemaker by AWS because it gives them that sort of a granularity, that access to manage the whole AI stack or machine learning stack for the model, from training to figuring out what data works and how to choose the model, how to tweak the hyperparameters, and a lot of technical details in the machine learning model. But yeah, in general, this is what I would go for. If you're a student, start with Colab. You're on mute, Doctor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ameen. And we have another question from Wiam. And by the way, Wiam is one of the students who participated in Huawei competition regarding AI. Nice. They designed the system and they won the best technology, I think, award in that competition. Go ahead, Wiam. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I thank you for the valuable presentation. I really enjoyed it. I have just a quick question about the data collecting, because in our project we took a lot of time to collect data. But you mentioned about I think the Google.
Kaggle, you mean? Kaggle.com.
Yes, can you please write like
Yeah,
the website in the
sure.
chat?
So, sure thing. So Kaggle.com used to be a service that was a standalone service basically that allowed people to go and get data, experiment with their models. But now since Google got it, it became a full-fledged solution, meaning you can share your data set. Imagine you have data set on like Indian spices, for example, if you want to experiment with what people like, and you can go those stuff. So one of the really big things that I found there that even companies like Airbus in and Boeing, they would actually share their, precious data set there. So you're going to see satellite images, you're going to see some really cool stuff, and you can download them. And those data sets can really grow into gigabytes of data. So having a website where you can just download data sets that you can work on and build models is just beautiful. You don't have to scrape the web and do things manually. Now, there's an illegal way of doing so for the people out there. You can basically write a small script, and I don't urge people to do it, but this is the case. You can write a script to go over multiple websites and really bombard the resources and get the data input, and then you can do your work on. But this is something that might not be extremely legal at your end. I know in Bahrain, maybe we don't have the legislation and the litigation against this sort of activities, but in the West, for example, you can get banned. You can even get hit with a legal, basically lawsuit for this. But always try to rely on Kaggle.com and other free data sets when you want to build your own machine learning model.
Okay, thank you,
Excellent,
Dr. Lee.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, and good luck in your future career. Any other questions from the audience?
Don't get shy, guys, huh?
Yes. So until we have a question, I would like to thank Dr. Lamia, the Dean, for organizing this. I'm the head of the Student Activities Committee, and we are in charge for this. With me, Dr. Risala Al-Adraj and Dr. Fatma Al-Blushi. I'd like to thank them for their efforts in the organization. And we also work with the research committee and the postgraduate committee in the college. I'd like to thank them all for their efforts in this issue. We also have on Wednesday, I think, the Cybersecurity Forum Symposium. Inshallah, we will announce it. I think they will post posters soon, inshallah. Yes, Dr. Fatma, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ameen, for the valuable presentation. Although I have a good background in artificial intelligence and machine learning, but actually I found your talk very, very useful. And I was taking notes all the time, by the way.
Awesome, thanks.
So thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you. I have
My
no
pleasure.
question. Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you very much, and probably we can work in the future together, given that this is your bread and butter.
Of course. It's going to be my great pleasure to work with you.
Specialist in computer vision and
Sweet, awesome.
I work a lot with images.
Nice.
image processing.
So probably we're going to have something in the future.
Inshallah. You have my website. You can always be in contact with me. I'll be more than happy if you guys want to add me on LinkedIn as well, so we can stay in contact.
Sure.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So the audience already have your information. So if they have any questions, they will bombard you with the questions.
Always happy to do
always do talks. Yani I'm following you a long time ago, and mashallah, very nice talks, and you have a very good way to deliver the information. Jazakallah khair for all your efforts, and may Allah reward you for that. And,
thank you, Doctor. And I really appreciate your time and the invitation, and thank you very much. And please share the information whenever you can, share the videos, because this really helps the ecosystem in Bahrain, especially in a field that we can have a really great momentum in, especially artificial intelligence. It doesn't need to have that physical infrastructure. You can do your work, and we have access to the cloud. So yeah, thank you again so much.
And as you mentioned, we have the lab that we are Benefit and the University of Bahrain agreed to establish is open for the public, not only for UOB students and researchers.
Beautiful.
It will be open for.
So I'll pay you a visit, guys, huh?
Yes, definitely. We are waiting for it, but we are still preparing the lab, so it's not established yet. Inshallah, in the next few months will be
Inshallah.
ready. Inshallah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And let me share with you we have the certificate, prepared a certificate for you.
Oh, this is so awesome. Now everything is digital, huh?
Yes.
So you have to get used to it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, before that, we needed to wait a few days until it gets printed, but now you can just get it immediately.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So let me share it with you here.
Beautiful. Oh, awesome. Thank you very much.
I'm holding it and
I'm gonna take a picture, probably use AI to put myself on the picture somehow. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your help and to making sure the community is developed. And again, I don't want to take a lot of your time. In case you needed anything, please reach out to me and have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for all our audience and for all the attendees for their making the effort to come. And we have also more in the series. We will announce them, and inshallah, you can join us. It will be we will have one next week about AI in education. We will send the posters, and you can join us also as well. Thank you again, and looking forward to see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.